connections between the history of art, music, and culture in DC with some of the city's most interesting people who helped shape this legacy, one conversation at a time. I'm T.
I'm Paige.
And we are really, really happy. I'm going off script right now to welcome who we have here. We have
got Alec Berry. Do you want me to read the whole introduction?
Go ahead, read the whole.
All right. So he's known in the scene simply as Roxplosion, who's been all over the region taking photos at the hottest shows and coolest venues. You've seen his photos featured on many of DC's websites, and many DC area musicians featured his photos on their social media photos. Also joining us is Sandi Redman of Local Music Live, who is a well-known local DC area videographer, I cannot talk, and super fan who covers the local music scene and musicians and venues in and around the DMV.
You see what happened? We got like, we're starstruck. We're in here like we're so used to seeing you guys in the context of like, there's people hooping and hollering and there's like cameras going, and now we're like all civilized and stuff. We're
like it's quiet. There's no music. We don't have earplugs in.
Right.
Being all civilized.
Right. Man, speaking of earplugs, I really need to start doing earplugs because this ear is getting weird, so I need to tighten up. Get those plugs, listen to Daryl and get those plugs. Let's start from where you guys are from. Alec, where are you from?
I'm from this area. I was born in DC, and I grew up in Northern Virginia, mostly Reston. I live in Reston now.
Yeah. Man, as soon as you said Northern Virginia, I just like a bunch of clubs that we don't go to anymore just ran through my mind. And Sandi, you're from Virginia too?
No, sir. I'm actually from all over the place.
That's what's up.
Well, then how did you get here from all over the place?
My dad was stationed at the Pentagon. Stationed at the Pentagon, so I lived in Fairfax in 75 and 76. My 14th move was when I was 18 years old, and I left my parents' house from London.
Whoa.
Oh my God, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, my mom shot for the military, and England was like our last stop before we came back to the States.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, I love the DC area. This feels like home. Of all the places that I've lived, all over the place, this is it, right?
Exactly.
Don't you feel like?
Yeah, I've lived here the longest of any place
Me
ever.
too.
Yeah, and
I
it
was
was
going on like 30 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because DC was not on my list of places
Right.
that I ever thought I would end up.
Wow. Well, okay. So I don't. So really, it's like, both of you guys, to like out of my eyes, the way I really kind of see you both is like you got like some kind of magic carpet, like you're everywhere. Like how you manage to, and it's clear, from the photographs and the videos of a ton of different groups that you guys love live music. But where does that I don't know, like I guess the question is what cultivated that love for music, as in like some people have a love for music and they want to be in a band. Other people have a love for music and they want to be, photograph it or mix music. Like how did your love for live music lead you to the medium that you use to capture it?
Well, for me, when I was in college, I went to Virginia Tech. I was friends with lots of musicians, and I used to go to all of their shows. And when I got out of college, since I'm from this area and I settled in this area, I had lots of friends that were in bands. So I was going into DC and house shows in people's basements all the time. And then I guess 2002, a friend of mine showed me his cool camera. I thought, ooh, this is really cool. I'm gonna get this camera. So I got it, and I started going to shows and taking the camera with me and taking photos of my friends and whatever other bands might have been on the bill.
Okay.
Then MySpace came along, and I started posting photos on MySpace. That seemed to I got a very good reception to that.
I'm thinking about going back to MySpace.
Is that
And
still a
so
thing?
I just continued doing that, and it dawned on me that the photos I was taking were horrible because I didn't have a very good camera. So I got a better camera, and the photos still weren't very good. And then finally, I upgraded, and around 2012, I feel I really got myself some equipment that could do everything justice. And it was around that time that I started Roxplosion.
Wow. What about you, Sandy?
My parents were music nerds, and every place we moved, my dad would set out to get season tickets for whatever every place we were at. So I was not kept at home. I was taken out to see shows, live shows, at a very, very early age. I mean, seriously. In fact, we had season tickets to the Wolf Trap back in the 70s. When they had season tickets, and the National, Kennedy Center. And I mean, I just was brought up in that environment. My parents really wanted me to be a musician. And so I learned to play piano and guitar and viola and was in a choir and all kinds of stuff like that. It was fun, but I had too much energy. I inherited my parents' restlessness. My dad was hyperactive,
Yes.
so am I. But it was really interesting because my husband really liked to shoot videos when we were at local shows in Leesburg. And I always thought that you should ask the musicians to do that first. And then all of a sudden I was like, man, everybody's holding up their cell phones. Why don't I just go ahead and do the same thing? And then I felt like I was contributing just by doing that, showing people what they missed. So that's what got me into it.
Showing people what they missed.
Showing people what they missed. And then I just started posting on Facebook. I wasn't really into Facebook other than just what was going on musically. Yeah. It was just like on a long racetrack. To get the best footage.
I sort of knew of both of you before I knew who you were.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I go to a lot of shows. I mean, not nearly as many as you two, but pre-COVID, I go to a lot of shows. You start noticing faces, and you start noticing, who's at shows, and you're like, oh, didn't I just see you? Or, oh, yeah. And you kind of like start gravitating towards people. And you were always running around taking photos, and people just were like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, yeah, that's his thing. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they would say your name, and everyone's like, oh, yeah. And then other people would mention you.
Oh,
and so, you guys have been part of kind of like my music going experience when I was kind of dipping my feet into it. And I'm just curious about how has sort of the music scene changed from like when you both, started going to live shows till now? Because I'm curious about how our experiences are maybe the same or different.
Well, obviously now with the sort of post-COVID, if we can call it post-COVID, that's a whole nother nut to crack. But I would say the only thing that really has changed that I can think of is there's bands that come and go, and there's venues that come and go. But the scene itself, I think it's been pretty consistent. People just love getting out and seeing live music, and the DC music scene enjoys being a coveted stopping point for touring bands going up and down the East Coast. So that's really nice. We have an interesting scene from the transient nature of a lot of a lot of people coming through the government. I have friends a friend's band that kind of broke up because all the members of the band worked for the Obama administration.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
and he was no longer in office. They went back to the states that they came from, and that band doesn't exist anymore. So that's a little unique, I think, to the DC area. But I think that it's been a pretty consistent scene.
You know, out of from my from looking at it from my eyes, and I sort of think about the last time I really like felt DC had a super strong music scene was in the mid '90s along U Street. There was well, there was really two clubs that really jump out: State of the Union and Republic Garden too. That was more of a kind of an R&B crowd. And then down at 14th and like Church was the Metro Cafe, and there was this guy Nick Nichols who was a promoter, and he really kind of that was a sort of a time where you could, because I lived near U Street then. That was sort of a time where you could kind of go outside on a Friday night, not really know who was playing where, or if you did, it was on like in the city paper, right? Because it's like, I guess it was still kind of like early internet, so kind of the city paper, you're going to find your information. And but what I find striking about what you guys do now is just like you kind of make the scene come to you. It's sort of like what you said, Sandy. Like you kind of with people let people know what they missed. It's kind of like I feel like you guys bring it to like, look at this cool thing. You got to be there next time because if you missed it, you're a clown. But I'm sorry, I digress. I don't want to. You'd ask that to both Sandy and Alec. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so I'm curious about what your response is to that, about how it's, do you think it's changed?
Well, back to what Alex said, definitely COVID has changed a little bit, scene, but I still think it's very collaborative. I think that a lot of people nowadays too are mixing more genres. Some of the things that are some of the sounds that we used to hear before were more, straight genres, like straight heavy metal or straight jazz. But now, I actually know some bands that are injecting kind of like a jazz feel to some reggae, which is really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw a band the other night, in fact, that did have this really interesting, really heavy rock reggae.
Oh, interesting.
Heavy rock reggae, which is really interesting. Yeah, and I just see the scene because I think that there's a lot of intelligence in the DMV. We have the highest percentage of high degree earners in all of the DMV than any other place I hear in the world. I don't know if that statistic is still the same, but I know 5 or 6 years ago that was the case. So I think we have a lot of expansive mindsets. We're very collaborative instead of competitive.
Totally agree with you.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever
100%
been. Yep. That's huge, and you see that play out everywhere. And it's really interesting because some of the bands will actually splinter off and do kind of side projects, which is really super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of the kind of collaborative nature, you guys are kind of known at a lot of venues by a lot of bands. I mean, you're rolling your eyes, but you walk in, people are like, you're here. But when you were sort of first starting out and kind of getting your feet wet, capturing what was happening, were bands accepting of what you were doing? Was there, or were they just kind of like, okay, that's fine?
I kind of cheated. As I said earlier, I would go and see friends of mine band, and then whatever other bands were on the lineup, and so I would be introduced to the other bands by the bands that I was friends with.
Okay.
And so, right before the show even started, I kind of had a little bit of a connection with the bands, and I've sort of continued to do that. Although now I'm much more comfortable going to a show where I don't know any of the bands at all, just people have recommended them, or just on a whim. I've gone to see, a show here in Baltimore, or I've even driven down to Richmond just to see a show that somebody sent me a video, said, "Oh, you should check this band out." And so I'm much more comfortable now. But getting started, I always stayed, I had a comfort zone sort of automatic, so I cheated.
Okay. But like now when you go, like do you make a point of introducing yourself beforehand?
I try to.
Okay.
I don't always do that, but I try to every single time go up to the bands and say, "Hey, I'm going to be taking photos of this band. It would be cool if I take photos of you also." Just so that I don't want to impose control over their image. It's them. So I think by asking permission, it makes people feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, okay, if I didn't want him to, and every now and then somebody will say, I really don't want you to take any photos. But I remember one band, one of the women in the band said, "I'm pregnant. I didn't shower today. I feel totally," and I go, "Okay, no problem. I will not take any photos of you." And then another band, the band member said, "Our drummer is on parole.
Ooh.
Could you not take any photos of him?" I don't know what's going on, but you know what? That is a request that I feel completely comfortable honoring that request.
Yeah.
I do not want to be, I don't want that guy's wife hunting me down going, "You sent him to jail." You know what I mean? So that's cool. But for the most part, people are like, "Yeah, sure, okay."
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because the channel that I created, the YouTube channel, was originally started because a friend of mine, Gordon Sterling.
Gordon! Oh, you know Gordon? Yes! I mean, he's a staple.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's wonderful.
I mean, if you're part of, like, have any awareness of the DC music scene, like, if you don't know Gordon Sterling, it's like, what are you doing with your life?
You're not going to music.
Right, exactly.
You don't know anything about the DC scene. One time I was filming him at IOTA, and he asked if I'd gotten a clip of him because he was doing a jam, and he really liked what he was doing, and he was like, "Can you send me that, or do you remember capturing it or whatever?" And I couldn't find it, and he said, "You should start a YouTube channel." And I was like, you know what, that's right, I should. Now, the number one rule with my YouTube channel, it's very important, I think I told you this, Terrence, the other day, is that it's for musicians. It's for them to see the work. It's for them to decide if they want it up, to share it. If they want the music, the video themselves, and all you have to do is hit me up. I have cards created just for them to reach out to me.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge. It's really, I mean, because it gets me back to what Alec was saying about the transient nature of this town. And if we're not careful, the narrative is just too easy to get it, for it to get twisted,
Exactly.
by another transient that might come and be like, well, my only frame of reference is the last 10 years in DC and not know. So it's really, with that piece right there is just huge that, that you would do that.
Well, it's so important.
Yeah.
Because I have some friends who tour in Europe, and I completely understand that their managers don't want a lot of their content. Right. I actually create private playlists for folks, and I do studio work, and then that way they can pick apart what they want. And they can create their own polished videos. And I gotta say, my favorite music to film in general is improv.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's enriching for the musicians to see. It's like what Gordon asked, if he, if I had that one clip of him doing that, that song with his buddies, then they can access, some of the cool stuff that they created on the spot. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that you both were talking about before we started is that, I've seen you both at the same shows, but I know you both kind of focus on different aspects of music or like different genres. You're more rock, and you tend to be a bit more broad.
I just like to cover it all.
Yeah.
Huge, just like
Yeah, so you like everything. You are very kind of like you're known as Roxplosion. You know, you are the punk, the metal shows. Was that intentional, or is that just what you naturally gravitate to? Like when you're listening to music, like that is literally your jam.
To a large degree, that's what I naturally gravitate to. With live music, I like almost everything. Yeah, when I'm in my car listening to music, I'm usually listening to something a little bit more edgy.
like edgy too.
Like edgy. Yeah, I mean,
Improv edge.
yeah. But is it harder? I mean, does it make it harder then to cover shows because you are so broad? I mean, because you can find a live show literally any night of the week and several. I'm sure you can with harder, with edgier music too. But I think like that is maybe a little bit more limited just because of what the venues tend to program.
It is.
But yeah, if you're broad, I mean, how do you decide? There's like 20 shows, unless you have a clone of yourself. How do you pick what to cover and what not to cover?
That is such a good question. Usually, it has to do with the band really wanting me there.
Mm-hmm.
And the specialness of it in terms of, like, for example, one of my favorite bands, Nagatu, is getting together to do a new show. They haven't performed in a long time, and they've got a new album. Hopefully that'll be released.
Mm-hmm.
That's special.
Hmm.
That took precedence. And usually, because I believe in leading with integrity, usually the people who ask me first are the ones who get covered first. But if it's somebody's CD release party or something like that, but if somebody asks me and it's on my calendar and it has been, for months, that's where I'm going.
Okay.
It's tough though. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, no,
It's really hard. It's
Oh.
a struggle and a stress.
yes, I can totally relate to that. Music and all the things that happen in DC, trying to figure out what thing am I gonna miss to go see this. Yeah, the struggle is real.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, between the three of you, I don't understand nothing.
You
Like,
have
how
like
you
a
ever do it.
notebook or like a calendar. Because at one of the Hut shows, I saw you guys were like comparing notes. Like, what shows were you going to? And
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna try to dip into this, but then I gotta go to this, and then I gotta go
That was
across
crazy.
town.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I thought I was like obsessed and organized. I mean, you take it to a whole nother level.
I gotta say, the coolest thing to me was watching both of you guys put on Tasty Pie shirts and go to the pie shop to that gig after the.
Yes.
I was over the moon about that. I was like, well, they gonna roll up in that spot,
Representing.
and it's gonna be crazy in there. Oh man.
It's such an honor.
But with you, I mean, how do you balance going to shows? Because it seems like a lot of your shows, like they tend to start later. Do you know, like, or yeah, I mean, I guess how do you balance going to all the shows that you go to and like sleep and and work?
Well, first thing, I don't go to as many shows as I think you think I do. The difference is I've got photos of the shows I go to. So I think that makes the appearance that I'm going to more often. I do have quite a backlog of photos that I've taken, and nobody's seen them yet. So sometimes I have to, I think, what am I going to do tonight? Do I want to go to this show? Do I want to go to that show? Or maybe I'll just hang out with my dogs tonight and I'll just be on the computer going through photos. I tend to do what I feel like doing.
Okay.
So if you see me at a show, I'm almost certainly enjoying myself.
Okay. But then what gets you out to a show? Because
Sometimes
yours
it's-
has to be special. What is your
Sometimes
like,
it's
trigger?
somebody asks me.
Okay.
It might be a venue, it might be a band, it might be a promoter. I'm friends with a number of people that put together shows, and sometimes they'll ask me, "Hey, it'd be really cool if you came to this show," and I have no idea who's on the lineup. But okay, well, he asked me, I'll come out and check it out. And sometimes I don't feel like going out at all.
What do you think is? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I go out every night of the week. I've only been home twice this year.
Good grief.
How? Yeah, how do you balance everything? Like, and when do you sleep?
I'm one of these kind of people that actually, when I hit the pillow, I'm asleep.
Yeah.
I literally go right to sleep. I don't toss and turn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't turn on the TV and fall asleep with the TV on. I'm not a big TV fan anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very, very satisfying career every day. I mean, I absolutely love my career.
Yeah. So you don't find it, I mean.
It's not a balance. It's not, I mean, it's balance.
Yeah.
It's not a struggle, I mean.
Okay.
So it's just, I guess my parents kind of raised me to be like that because my dad was like that as well. There is time to do that, you know.
Okay.
You can hit the road at 6 o'clock and make it to a show
Yeah.
and be home by midnight or 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do. It really is. It's the momentum, although my husband always says it's not a race. And I'm like, no, it's not a race, but it's momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does your husband come out with you?
Oh yeah, he shoots some really good photos. He's really great. The thing about photos, and I wanted to mention about to Alec, is that I think that you guys spend, it's easier to take videos for me than it is for my husband to shoot photos because he spends a lot of time in the editing process. Whereas I'm in the moment, I'm listening to the music, I know you are too, but I'm capturing the movements, I'm anticipating the leads, I'm anticipating the drum solos and, you know, the vocals, you know, and it's easy for me to pan from musician to musician. It's easy for me to capture that.
Sorry about the, this is good old road. This is the
Hey, we're in the city.
Ambulance Central.
Yeah. But I don't spend a lot of time uploading. I mean, the uploading process that I have is very fast. I have everything in a spreadsheet. I just copy and paste the text, and boom, I'm done. I mean, it doesn't take me long at all. It takes me maybe, 10 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, they upload on their own. I can walk away from my computer, and then I keep everything on hard drives. It's fast.
That is very fast.
It is really, really fast. My husband spends time editing.
Oh, he
you have to
edits.
be perfect.
Oh.
And see, I don't do any video editing. I'm just showing
What you saw.
yes,
Got you.
what everybody missed.
What about you? Are you spending a lot of time?
I do. I don't like,
Yeah.
I tell people the secret to good photography is bad photography
Okay.
and knowing the difference.
Yeah.
And so I really don't want to post a photo of that the musician isn't going to like.
Exactly.
I'm sure I do, but it's not on purpose. And so, yeah, but I've been doing this for a while. And I'm a computer nerd, that's my profession. So I've got a lot of it down to almost a science. So I can go through photos pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do try to limit myself when I'm at a show. I always, my sort of limiting thing that I kind of joke to myself about is no more than 100 photos per band,
Okay.
with the anticipation that I'm going to post 25.
Okay.
Wow.
And that's because I want to get that look when somebody's in a guitar solo, and so I'll take 4 or 5 photos, knowing that only one of them is going to be the one that has that look. And the rest of them I'm going to throw away. Nobody wants to see them. And nobody wants to see 300 photos of their set. Nobody.
Right.
So let me ask this then, because I feel like there's sort of there could be a couple of different motivations that you could say that a given show was good or not. Like, in other words, what would you deem as a successful show? I mean, like, are some shows like you went there, the music was happening, and maybe the shots weren't happening, but the music was happening, or maybe the shots was happening and the music wasn't happening, like,
Yeah, those are not tied together.
Right.
I've had a story I tell people sometimes if somebody comes up to me after a show and they said, "Hey, did you get any shots of our new song?"
Right.
No, I mean, unless your new song is the one song that you used a tuba,
Right.
you can't really tell which song was. And now, I mean, some bands, you use a different guitar for this song or that song, and maybe in some bands will switch instruments, the bass and guitar. So there's some of that, but for the most part, I think Sandy is capturing more of that than I am. I'm looking for, something that I'm looking at a person playing and looking at the lights and thinking, okay, how can I get an angle that's gonna really make this look good? And it doesn't matter what they're playing. I mean, to a certain degree, but at the same time.
That can help too, especially if it's.
Yeah, but at the same time, there are times that I'm taking photos of the band and I'm just so into it that I completely forget to take photos. I mean, for a moment, then I get back into it, but, because I don't want to do it unless I'm really into it. But the things that really, there are some stages that just naturally, you're gonna get good photos. If it's set up.
Like which ones?
Well, I mean, I think everyone knows I'm a big fan of the Pie Shop.
Yep.
They've got a great stage
Great
set up,
venue.
great lighting and everything. The hut is set up well, dark backgrounds, neutral light from the front. I can't stand smoke. So.
Where can you even smoke?
No, I mean, like the dry
smoke
ice,
machine.
yeah.
Well,
Oh.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay sometimes, but there's some venues that you walk into the door, the front door. The stage is way on the other side of the building, and there's smoke pouring out. And I'm not gonna be able to get any photos of the drummer, because the drummer's just gonna be lost in smoke and
I
fog.
wonder who thought that was a good idea
Well,
for.
it is a good idea. Little puffs of smoke here and there, you get beams coming from the lights.
Okay.
That looks fantastic.
Right.
So it's a matter
But like
of,
some cryogenic, like we just.
it's just a matter of getting that ratio right. And sometimes they're not the person running the show isn't really thinking about that. And I understand that there's a lot of things going on. They put the smoke machine on and they just leave it on.
Right.
And it fills, on a smaller venue, that fills up really fast.
Right.
And so those that's kind of annoying. It's almost a pain to take the photos because I know that I'm not going to get anything that looks good. And then there's other venues that have disco blinky lights.
Oh.
I don't like those.
Yeah. But one thing, so at the shows where I've seen both of you, and you guys are just like part of the audience. Like, why don't you get press credentials and like shoot from the pit?
I do.
You do? Okay.
I've done. It depends on the venue. I've done that at the 930 Globe and a couple of other larger places, the Fillmore, and so that's good. But I want to be part of the crowd, and I want to not. I kind of think about the fact that people are paying to see a show. They're not paying to see the back of my head.
Thank you.
And so,
true.
I try to take photos, like a lot of venues have rules that, okay, you can take photos for the first 3 songs.
Yep.
And then you
And then you
gotta
gotta get done. Yeah.
And I try to do a similar thing even at a smaller venue where I'll take a couple photos, then back up. And then observe and go, okay, I think I can get a good shot of the bass player that I didn't get before. So now I'm gonna go to the other side of the room and I'm gonna take some photos from over there and then I'm gonna back up. And that way I don't want people leaving the show talking about me. Oh yeah, Mr. Photographer, I don't use flash ever. And I just try to, I just try to keep in mind the fact that the purpose of the show isn't getting photos. Even though sometimes the purpose of the show is getting photos because they specifically have asked for a video, or they've specifically asked for, we've got a new album coming out, or we've got a new promotional thing. We really want to get photos tonight. Okay, but still, I mean, it's the people that paid money to go see the show. That's what's most important. So I just try to stay out of the way. And I know that I fail in that often, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I've got some great photos of the back of your head.
Yeah. It's famous. I should rent it out.
You should be like a billboard. Should be like a billboard. Like this space brought to you by. But because both of you have been to so many shows and captured so much footage, and this is probably a really hard question, but can you, what has been, your favorite show, where you think you've either gotten the best shots or you just had the best experience? And I'm gonna ask you first.
Well, there's different techniques for each type of genre that I use. I'm not gonna do like head banging videos like when I do with Bobby Lee's Veil of Blue and you guys are moving around a lot. With a jazz band, right? Every time I talk, there's an ambulance, they're coming to take me away. So, what are the, it's interesting, as long as it's good, I really like good music, and that's what I prefer. I mean, it's really hard for me to shoot videos. I have to objectify the people that are on the stage. So I get into a different kind of zone when I'm filming something that somebody wants me to film that I'm not really into that much. But my favorite, I guess, are some of the really exciting shows where there's a lot of action and energy.
Yeah.
Any come to mind?
Veil of Blue. I'll never forget the first time I saw you perform.
That's when I had hair on my head.
I remember that. It was at the Velvet Lounge.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Velvet Lounge has got good sound.
It was awesome. I remember every show that I filmed of you guys.
Man.
Wow. Like, have you seen her footage of you guys?
Oh, I fish through Sandi Redman's stuff most nights. No, but I mean, I do that mainly. I do it. I got two reasons. One is I'll look at her footage. I'll play her footage, but turn my laptop around if I just want to hear. Because like it's sort of like what you said. Like I might have been anxious for us to play a new song, but really, it probably shouldn't. It's not going to be good until maybe the 6th or 7th time we've played it out. The energy, the spirit might be here, and the chops will be like here. But no, I usually, and then other times I look at Sandi's footage because it's like a football player watching tapes. Like sometimes I'll look at her footage and I won't. It's difficult because I'm an egomaniac with low self-esteem. So it's difficult for me. It's difficult for me sometimes to like I'll be like, I'm just gonna look at Daryl. This whole song, I'm not gonna look at me at all, or I'm just gonna look at the drummer, or so sometimes I look at it from studying, like where my microphone was, you don't play air guitar like that. Why are you playing real guitar like that? So you need to drop your strap so you can play it comfortable, like this sort of thing. And then there's other times where I'm really kind of like the last thing at the Hut. It was kind of about the band, but the way she captured it, it was a lot about the energy of the room. That night, the energy of the room was, and there's a lot of footage of our bands particularly, but there's not often where you feel the energy of the room, of the people in the room. Even if you couldn't see them, like she was doing like these ill pans because Nicolette was drawing, and so like we might be crescendo into this part where we know we're about to just go nuts, and then but Nicolette doesn't know it, and then we jump into it, and then she's panning, and Nicolette is just like, oh, what's that? You know what I mean? So it was like that kind of stuff. It's the feeling I get like when I go and Google Led Zeppelin playing for a small TV audience in Sweden doing Communication Breakdown when they just sitting on the floor watching them and they don't even know what they got themselves into, kind of a thing. So that's kind of the moments. It's about the moments, and she catches the moments. Yeah.
No two shows are the same. There are some bands that I have, over 200 videos of.
Wow.
But they're not the same.
Right.
I mean, the background may be the same.
Yeah.
And maybe the musicians are the same, and maybe the songs they play or what they played, 5 years ago, whatever. But the way they play them are different. You can feel it. Do you feel that in your videos that you see?
Yeah. Well, I feel it. Sure. Because if we're playing, when we're playing tunes, I don't ever want it to feel like we're just going through the motions. When we first, and I honestly, I promise you that I tried to, before we did this, I was like, I'm not gonna really try to talk about Phalo much, because what you guys are doing is just bigger than that. But I will say this, when Phalo first started, we had 6 tunes. We went out to Jam and Job, and it was like, you got an hour. I was like, we don't need an hour. We need we need 30 minutes. We got 6, and we played those little 6 songs. We played our hearts out, those little tunes, right? And then you fast forward some years, and we got a bunch of tunes. But there'll be a tune that we played when we first started that I still want to play now because of how I feel about the song. And not just like, yeah, we're there to entertain, we're there to, do the thing, but like this last thing we did the tune, we played this tune called Daddy. Daddy has a certain meaning to me personally. I don't want to drag the cats into playing the song they don't want to play, but I'm saying when I play that song, I'm in the lyric. I'm not just, you know what I mean? And so like, yeah, so I see what you mean, Sandy, when you say like every song, every time we play a tune is usually not, a lot of times what we'll do, and then I'm definitely gonna shut up about the Phalo picture, is we do it like football. Like I'm like a quarterback. I'll have like, I say, okay, we got 45 minutes. All right, we know we're gonna play this, and this song, and then everything else is inaudible. We're gonna play these 4 songs. We're gonna sniff around in the room, and then say, okay, yeah, it's time to play Tasty Pie, or from the looks of things, it's time to play whatever. So we try to kind of have that thermometer in the room to kind of see if we can, but also scout bands too. So if I know we're on a gig and there's a bunch of headbangers, we want to kind of like, okay, in the scheme of this entire show, of all these acts that I've watched videos of before the gig, what would kind of be the best set to separate us from what everyone else is doing? Thanks for letting me share.
As you were talking about that, I had a question for Alec, because I think when I first sort of met you was at a Hut show. And I remember I was watching you take photos. You were like up here, you were crawling down, and I was taking a lot of photos when I was going to shows myself, but I have no skill. I'm just a fan. And I was like, why is he shooting up here? Why are you doing this? And I'd asked you about, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And now when I look back through my photos, I always trying to look at them for, okay, did I capture that moment that tells the story of the show? When you're taking your photos and then you're looking back at them, whether it's that show or all the photos, are you just trying to capture the moment? What are you trying to capture? What are you trying to tell when you get the photo and you decide to share it?
I have, there's a couple of different things.
Yeah.
Different sort of goals. One of them is the album cover shot.
Oh, okay.
And I've taken a picture that maybe would be featured on an album cover, or maybe something that would appear in a newspaper or something else where this is the definitive shot. And then other times I'm taking shots that demonstrate the particular venue, because the venues like to use shots as well. And then there are some shows I'll go to, particularly I've been to some shows at the 930 Club where there have been 7 or 8 other photographers that also had credentials. And I'll watch what they're doing, and then make a point of taking photos that are different from what they're taking.
Yeah.
Because if I'm taking the same photos that they're taking,
What's the point?
what's the point?
Right.
I'm not adding anything. But if I take photos that they're not taking, even if the photos don't end up being that good, at least they're different, and they're adding something to the for adding something.
That's a good point. Like one of the things I've started noticing in some of my photos, especially like new bands that are starting out, you know, they don't have like their performance stance, you know, they're just kind of trying to get through their songs and they're not doing a whole lot. They're just kind of standing there. And I'm like, you are giving me nothing to photograph. Like, you're standing there, you know, no one is looking up. Like, even though like I'm liking their music, you know, I'm always in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm looking for the shot. Like, I can't go to a show and not think of, I want to get a good shot. I mean, are you?
You can, as a photographer, you can force it a little bit.
Oh, how?
Different angles. Positioning, you know, moving around so that the lights are in a different position compared to the musicians, or moving around to the side maybe so that the musicians are in different relative places from perspective. There's a photography technique called forced perspective.
Yes.
Forced perspective.
Yes, you can, so I use a lot of that in order to make the person looking at the photo think, oh, well, you know, somebody was bigger than they really are, smaller, or in the ratio, in other words, a bigger stage.
I love that fisheye. You ever see the one he does it like a fisheye, like
Yeah, you can do a fisheye lends
crazy.
itself to that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think
I
it's
just
a
use
wider
my phone.
angle.
Like, I don't
lends
have
itself.
equipment. I don't know how to use a real camera.
You can also do things like most guitar players, for example, while they're playing, will from time to time look down.
Look down. Yep.
So if you take a photo from below and wait until they look down, that tends to be, not always, but tends to be an interesting shot, even if the person is standing still. It's just a different perspective and a different thing. Or trying to line yourself up with the neck of the guitar. That kind of action.
I've seen you take some shots where the angle was like kind of elevated and kind of like, I'm trying to think, it may have been at, what's the place in Southwest next to Anthem, the
Union Stage?
Union Stage.
Yeah.
Where you got some shots where it almost looked like it was a drone. I mean, like it was sort of like it was like it wasn't direct at the stage. It was kind of at an angle, but kind of like, you know, we looked like hella like taller than we were, but it was kind of
well,
like
again, that's a forced perspective type of thing.
Yeah.
And the camera that I'm using enables me to see what I'm doing even as I'm holding the camera over my head. So
that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times you're just kind of like you're not even looking. I'm like, how is he doing that? Because like I've seen photos of yours, you know, at a show that I've been to, and I'm like, damn it, like look at this amazing shot. And I'm like, well, mine are trash. Like I'm just not, you know, like how did he do that?
one thing I do, one thing I don't do is I rarely take photos from eye level.
Okay.
And I don't use the viewfinder. I always use the back screen. So that allows me to get lots of different angles that I normally wouldn't. I can hold the camera around a speaker cabinet, for example, and that's an angle that maybe nobody else gets a shot like that. Also allows everybody else, they can see what I'm doing. You can look at the screen just like I am looking at the screen and see exactly what I'm doing.
Interesting.
So, and again, I've been doing this a lot. I have over 250,000 photos of bands. So
What are you gonna do with all of them?
you pick up things from time, you know.
What are you gonna do with all of them? I mean, that's
They're all in you know, redundant store. Again, I'm a computer nerd.
Yeah.
So I've got a whole. I over the COVID break, I managed to all of these different hard drives that I had, where everything was stored on. I consolidated it all, and I built myself a new media server. I call it the Big Black Box.
Right.
It's literally a cube. It's like a cube, and it's got tons of hard drives in it. And I used all of my knowledge of building media servers for that. And so it's all there.
What do you plan to do with them? Like retrospective of some sort, coffee table book?
That's actually something I have thought of. I don't know.
One of the things we've been talking about, and I know that the owner of Flow Gallery and I have had this conversation because he saw some of Alec's work, is having an exhibit.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Yeah.
I think that'd be,
Yeah, the
Amazing.
problem with doing an exhibit and prints and everything is I have no idea how to hang art.
No, that's what you.
That's right.
yeah.
Chopped
what you
liver
got
over
now?
here. What am I like? Pork chops,
Yeah, I'm
and
like-
sauce over here.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause as, a relative newcomer to the music scene, kind of like a retrospective, either of, early bands or venues that aren't here anymore, or bands that, had the moment and aren't around anymore, would be fascinating. Because people seem to think that, like, there is no music in DC. Like, we're talking about the transient nature of people. And I feel you kind of have to be in the scene to know the scene, but it's hard to figure out how to get in the scene. Because I kind of stumbled into it by accident.
Yeah, I feel like you really kind of know what's going on. You kind of know.
Yeah, I
what's
didn't
going on.
at the beginning. I mean, I was, going to shows at, 9:30 Club and, thinking I'm all cool, but that was it. I wasn't
Right.
seeing local shows at that point. I didn't know, I couldn't have named a local band, 10 years ago, not a clue.
I think-
Wouldn't have known where to go.
DC has a couple of great smaller venues. There's three in particular, I call them gastro venues.
Gastro, oh, that sounds fancy.
Comet Ping Pong,
Love
Yeah.
that one.
and Slash Run, and the Pie Shop. And they're located in three different
Different,
areas
yeah.
of the city.
The pinch would have been part of that.
And I would say
R.I.P. Florida.
DC9 probably fits into that category
Yep.
as well. And I'm leaving out a whole bunch of them. There's others as well. But those three clubs I mentioned in particular tend to have local bands. And I have found that I was at a Fort Reno show a few years ago, and it started raining. I'm like, okay, well,
Was that this year?
my camera gear is rated weatherproof.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't want to test that.
For sure.
So I pack everything up, and I'm like, okay, it's much earlier than I thought it was going to be. That I'm packing everything up. What am I going to do? Well, Fort Reno is pretty close to Comet Ping Pong, and I knew that there was not a show at Comet Ping Pong that night, but there was a show at Slash Run, and I bands that I'd never heard of before. Well, okay, I'm just going to go to Slash Run. I know the people that work there. It's a great place, and I went to Slash Run and had a great time.
I've never been there yet. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, it's a great
And
venue.
it was fantastic.
Yeah, and good
And I've done the same thing.
Good food.
I've done the same thing at Comet Ping Pong, where I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I'm just going to go to Comet Ping Pong tonight.
Yeah.
Get some pizza and see whatever band might be playing, and I had a fantastic time. And the Pie Shop, same thing. And so, I guess I'm really comfortable doing that because I also, again, I cheat a little bit because I know that I will know people at those venues. I know people that work at the bar, and so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be encountering a friendly environment. That makes it easy, and I think other people can do the same thing very easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe a little challenging too in that, now so many bands are only on social media. Like they don't really, they'll post a show at the last minute. I mean, like, I feel like if you kind of are following, I'm sorry.
There's a COVID-19 aspect to that, I think, right now.
True.
There's a lot of situations where bands are canceling last minute due to whatever reason. Sometimes it's because somebody got COVID. Sometimes it's because somebody's roommate's coworker got COVID and they all want to quarantine. Sometimes it's because the bass player works for Amazon, and Amazon said, you were going to take off tonight. You can't take off tonight. You got to work tonight.
Yeah.
So there's these last minute changes,
Right.
and then we got to get a band
Yeah.
to fill this.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that I'm noticing going on. That's going to be the case probably for a little while. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing we can do
and,
about it.
yeah,
And it still means I had there was a show just a few weeks ago where there was a cancellation last minute, and we managed to make it work. Nobody had any complaints,
yeah.
but it was a little scary at first. So
The last show that we did in Baltimore, well, we had a guy in the band that, you know, he was understandably concerned about what would be the protocol at the venue. The people at the venue were kind of half vigilant, half kind of casual, and so we really kind of rode there to the Baltimore gig. We kind of rode there with the idea of like, we're going to suit up, and we're going to show up, and we'll know if we're going to play when we start playing. You know what I mean? But I want to get back to that black box for 1 second, though. I want to get back to the black. Here's why. In that black box, do you think you have captured any really shocking or weird moments in that stand out for you? Like,
Well,
you know,
like I said, there's a 250,000 photos.
That's
of
crazy.
DC.
That's
DC.
crazy.
There's a lot of Baltimore,
Yeah.
some Richmond, some stuff from New York and New Jersey, but it's mostly DC. And yeah, there are definitely some shots in there. You should see.
Such as?
You should see my screensaver.
oh
Which is-
boy,
My screensaver.
somebody got on a meat suit.
My screensaver is it's just rotating photos
Yeah.
randomly of roughly my 12,000 favorites.
12,000
wow.
favorites.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it just
Okay.
rotates, and that's it. And that's, you know, but I've got some great photos. Some of my favorite photos are, you know, when the lighting and everything just captures it perfectly, like a person's playing a guitar and the light just happens to shine perfectly off of a tuning peg
Right,
to make
right,
a, you know, the
Yeah.
like beams.
Yeah.
I can't make that happen.
Yeah.
right, right.
But it happened,
Right.
and I was there, and I got it. Those shots are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But some of my favorites are shots with the band and the fans.
For
And there's-
sure.
Not every venue is set up to be able to do that. So the Black Cat in their downstairs area,
Downstairs.
which doesn't exist
Doesn't
anymore.
Right.
But the way that the stage was set up, there was a way to get around to the side, and there was a
Yeah.
little DJ booth.
Yep. Yep.
And if I could go into the DJ booth, and I would ask, you know, the person running sound, hey, is it cool if a couple times I get, yeah, sure, no problem, just, you know,
Right.
don't leave a mess.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd get up there and I could get photos from the side of the band and the crowd right up in front of them.
Yeah.
All with their hands up in the air
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that, yelling or screaming or whatever.
Yeah.
I love that. And I got some photos at the pie shop of Sheila, one of my favorite bands. And they're just rocking out on the stage, and the fans are like, you know, that close.
That close, yep.
And they're having a great time too.
Yeah.
And photos like that, I think, it makes the photo alive.
Trying to get Sheila at the hut. I reached out to them. Yeah, we got to get these calendars linked. I really want to get Sheila at the hut. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Can I tell a story about Sheila?
Go on.
Please.
So
They're
I
awesome.
did a show at Slash Run at the end of the year in 2019, and I called it the greatest concert ever.
Yeah.
That's what I called it. And it was Maureen Van Effen and Shad Wolf and Pagan Reagan and Sheila. And Sheila was going to be the headliner. And due to my fault, it was nobody's fault other than mine, the timing got messed up. And Slash Run at the time was dealing with a lot of noise issues with neighbors, and we had to cut the show. And I felt horrible, because Sheila was the band that had to get cut. I'm like, no, this is horrible. So I did my best to make it up to them, and I had them headline 2 shows during COVID, outdoor shows, Punk Rock Parking Lot at Epicure Cafe, and Lake Fairfax Skate Park.
Nice.
And so I think I'm on their good graces now.
Good graces.
So,
Yeah.
but they're wonderful. They're absolutely
They're
wonderful.
great, yeah.
I
I've
love-
never seen them live.
One of the best things, here's what I recommend when you go see Sheila for the first time, is when they're getting ready to start, position yourself so that you can see the fans.
Okay.
Man, you're gonna be getting lots of Sheila, but
Yeah.
there's about 10 or 15 seconds that you want to observe the fans,
Yeah.
the people at the show. Because when they start playing, anybody who's never seen them before,
Yeah.
you gotta get the look in their face.
When they're just like, wow.
Wow.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I can count on it every single time.
That's
They're
fantastic. Yeah, I've only seen them live once. Yeah. You were mentioning shows that you're doing now.
Mhm.
You've segued into putting together your own shows and things like that. Kind of, how did you get from you're the dude taking the photographs and to now you are like the promoter, arranger?
Well, okay, it's interesting story.
Okay.
I was at a diner, I think, hanging out with some with the guys in the band Black Dog Prowl,
Okay.
and I mentioned that my 50th birthday was coming up. Of course, this is years ago.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you should do a concert, have a Roxplosion concert, for your 50th birthday.
Mhm.
And I said, you can't just have a show. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, actually it does. How do you think shows happen? Oh, I don't know. So anyway, so they helped me put together a show. And then we had a show at the Rock and Roll Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And
Another R.I.P.
it went over very well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ooh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I did a show at the Dewdrop Inn. That show was not the best attended in the world, to say the least. And then I was hanging out at Comet Ping Pong at a show with some friends from Brookline, because I cheat. And I was talking to a bunch of people, and I said, I've got ideas for what I think would be great shows here. I don't even know who to talk to. And one of the women that was in the group that I was talking to said, you talk to me.
What?
Really? She goes, yeah, here's my card. And
Wow.
so I emailed her a bunch of lineups that I thought, and she goes, these sound great. See if you can put one together, and let's do this. So I did a series of shows at Comet Ping Pong. I think Thala Blue was on one of those. It was a fantastic show.
That was with more AM and FM.
More than FM and Company Calls.
I was at that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was a good show.
and it was fantastic. And so I did a couple there. Then I did a couple at Slash Run. And in the pie shop, when they were opening up, somebody from the pie shop contacted me and said, hey, we're opening up a venue above the pie shop. Would you like to put together some shows here? I said, yeah. Yeah. And I reached out to Thala Blue for the very first show I ever did there. And with Shagwolf and Bohat.
And Boat.
And
Yep.
and
History.
and I got great photos of
And
the
pie.
crowd. And at one point, I don't remember which band it was playing, but the crowd's all right in front of the stage and having a good time. And I look back, and the owners of the place are standing on the pews near the soundboard, and they're just smiling. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the best possible reaction that I could imagine. It's this.
Yeah.
So
Salute, man. I mean, like, really, it just goes back. It really kind of really goes to my sort of pet theory that if you don't talk so much about having a scene and you're busy like being the scene, like let other people call it the scene. But like, I mean, like watching what you've done in really a short time has been super important. I know to the personally, and then I'm sure to other bands that from around, because it can be really tricky and difficult. I mean, pre-COVID, you know what I mean? To get a look from clubs, it can be not about how good your band is. You know, it can be about how many drinkers you're gonna bring.
Yeah, and especially if it's if it's a sound outside of what they normally program.
Right.
Because most of the venues all program sort of the same stuff. Like not too many are gonna program, a metal show or rock show, whichever is the right one to use. So I think it's great that you have kind of picked up the baton for that. And I'm wondering, like, do you ever see yourself just becoming full-time, like, no, I can't even get the question out my mouth.
No, I enjoy sort of where I am now, going to shows, taking photos, helping bands with, not exactly helping bands with marketing, but helping bands with marketing material. So the shows that I do at the Pie Shop, for example, I set it up so that there is, they've got a projector, and we project onto the black curtains behind them.
Yeah.
And so that the photos, video, or whatever will have the name of the band, or the name of, or Pie Shop, or, you know, it rotates.
Yeah.
And that way, the takeaway from the show is marketing material for them to use.
Yeah.
But of course, it's great. We hope it's gonna be a great show, and it's gonna have a lot of fun. But there's gonna be, not only memories of the show and one normally would, but also, material that can be used for, you know, future marketing purposes and so on. You know, and I work with the Pie Shop to set the lights up exactly like would be perfect for video and photography. Very little smoke. And, you know, so that it's emphasized for that, and it works out really well. And when I was doing Punk Rock Parking Lot at Epicure in Fairfax, I made a big banner that said Punk Rock Parking Lot that we put behind the drummers that appears in all the shots. So yeah, just focusing on what is, I want to put together a show that won't just be that moment, but will have kind of a legacy in a way. Legacy is too strong a word for that, but so that there's something that comes from that goes on, that lasts.
So really, it really kind of feels like, in some ways, you're in a position where, like, in just in terms of like this thing, just in terms of like the promotional aspect, where you can kind of like, it's like an alley-oop between you and Sandy, where you can like sort of set up this situation of these bands being together, and then, like, you know, and she's there, and it's like, it's the alley-oop, you know, and she's videoing it, you know.
We did a show at the Pie Shop where I set it all up with the lighting and all that, and with the band Eat the Cake. Yeah. And they, I can't remember exactly what happened. I think they contacted me and said, "Is it going to be okay if we videotape?" And I said, "Videotape." They didn't say videotape. I said tape.
I get it.
Okay if we video. But I said, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be taking photos, and I'm going to have the stage set up, you know, to highlight or make it as easy as possible for video and photos. So that'll work out great. And sure enough, they brought us a little video crew, and they used footage from the show in future videos that they did of the songs that they played at the event. I was so happy that all worked out. And when you know, I look at some of Sandy's videos, and if they're the shows that I'm doing at the Pie Shop, all of that stuff that I put in you know, projecting on the back, it shows up nice and clear. You can see it. It's like, okay, this is serving the purpose that I intended. And the band can use that, and you know, as they show other people, and it's got the name of the band behind them, and then it fades out to Pie Shop, and then it fades out to Symphony Sessions or whatever else. And I'm like, yes, this was the plan. And
that's great. I really love that. Yeah, you know, I think maybe I saw something like that a long time ago, when and I don't know if they still, how long they did this, but at Amoeba Records in California. They would have, you know, live, like in-store stuff, and you could either see the whole thing or you could see pieces of it. And there's this one clip of the Dirt Bombs doing tune "Ever Loving Man," and it's like, it was at Amoeba, and you know, I got a list of tunes, like I call them like my pre-gig, you know, like spirituals, right? So like that's on that list, right? I watched that video. I watched, you know, Bad Brains in Miami doing, you know, House of Suffering. Like, these are the things to get me ready to play, right? And that whole piece of like taking these moments out of a venue, out of a date, you know, sometimes I feel like they're even stronger than the, you know, like the music video, you know, like this, I feel like, you know, like, it just has that element of just like, it's like an X factor of you know, it being live and the thing being played, and it's like not, you know, a storyboard behind it, you know what I mean?
But do you feel that, you know, 'cause more and more when I go to shows, you know, bands have, like, they come with their own photographer, they come with someone who's doing their social, you're doing it, you know, doing like an Insta or something. Does that interfere in what you're trying to capture?
Not in the tiniest bit.
Okay.
In fact, I like I said, Eat the Cake reached out to me before the show. I've had other bands that have similarly said, well, we're going to be, you know, bringing, you know, or I get to the show and they have a photographer or somebody doing video, and before the show starts, I take them off to the side and go, okay, I've set the everything up that should make the video and photos that you're taking, you know, that should emphasize that and make everything look, describe what I'm doing. And if it's somebody taking video, I'll tell them, I go, you know, I'm going to be taking photos and I'm going to try my best to stay out of your way, but, you know, don't worry about, you know, pushing me off to the side a little bit, because I want you to get the best video that you possibly can from this show, especially the show that I put together. And a video that they are using from that show is something that they end up, you know, really hyping and using. That's just, I could not imagine a better outcome long term from a show, is that they get to use that show to hype themselves, and that's great. So I think I was a little earlier before we started talking. I was talking about a band from Richmond.
Yeah.
That I brought up to one of my punk rock parking lot shows in Fairfax, and they got some attention and are now getting some more gigs in DC. I just could not be happier about that. That I helped in the marketing and publicity of a band that I really like. So.
No, that's awesome.
It's a way that I can leave my mark on the
Yeah,
music
sure.
scene, is by emphasizing the bands that I really like in a way that's totally natural. You come to see the band and you really like them, and then you want to do work with that band. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I mean, you know, when I go to shows and, you know, and I'll look back, you know, at the photos, sometimes if I think that there's something that's like, oh, that's not bad, like, that was a really good shot, you know, I'll send it to the band, like, hey, you know, great show, I really had a good time, like, I took a couple photos, you know, if you like them, you know, totally feel free to use them, you know, credit me, but, you know, but go ahead, you know, like, just thought you guys might, you know, want to use them. And I know it was the React radio show. Yeah.
Felipe Cooper.
Felipe, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
They
that
still
sounds-
use photos of there, and I'm always like,
That was a
Right around the corner.
right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like I totally relate to what you're saying. Like you feel good that you're helping promote a band that you like.
Yeah.
And I always feel that like my photos are better if I really do like the band. Like there's some bands I'm like, no, they were fine, but it's like, you know, click, man. But like if I really, you know what I mean? Because if it's a band that I really like, I try that much harder to get a really good shot. Because I want people to see why I like them so much. Like if they're fine, you know, I'm not gonna make them look like crap or anything, but you know, I'm not gonna, you know, be bobbing and weaving and trying to, you know, stick my arm out or anything. But if they're like amazing, I'm like, I want everyone to know why they're amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, with the exception of Phthalo Blue, who are your current top 5 favorite DMV?
I've thought about this question.
Did you?
I thought about this question. This is an extremely difficult question.
I know it has to be.
Answer.
You got the black box with all the. I know.
10 billion.
The big black box,
right.
So
So if you go to Roxplosion.com website, there's a link at the top of the page for the parade of hits, and it's a list of all the bands that have played a Roxplosion show,
Yeah,
grouped in order of how many shows they played.
yeah.
I think that probably answers that question better than anything else. But I can give you a couple names.
I bet Sheila's on the list.
Sheila,
Yep.
Shagwolf,
Yeah.
Maureen Manetho, Boat. Not any names that I think would be surprising
Right.
to anyone.
Right.
Menage a Garage, Fake Bodies. I could go on.
Right.
Literally, I could go on. We don't have enough time.
Right.
There's so much great rock and roll music going on. in
For sure,
DC.
for sure.
So much.
Yeah, yeah. I love the idea that I belong to a band that plays rock and roll music that comes out of DC. You don't know how like when we go to places like Baltimore or wherever we go, I carry so much DC baggage. I mean, I feel, you know what I mean?
But in a good way, right?
Yeah, in a good way. It's
Yeah.
like I feel like how a person from New Orleans must feel when they go somewhere else to play, jazz or whatever, like that's how I feel. I'm like,
I'm not in a band, but I actually capture a little bit of that as well if I'm down in Richmond.
Yeah.
Or if I'm in Secaucus.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, well, I do concert photography, but mostly DC. They go, oh.
Yeah.
It does. It's got that little bit of
Yeah.
cachet to it.
Yeah.
And, oh, you're part of the DC music scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got it going on here.
Yeah.
We do.
We really
Yeah. And I think that's why, the fact that, you and Sandy, pretend she's here, that you capture it is so important. Because depending on where you're from, I still feel so many people are dismissive over the DC music scene. They think that, again, it's because they haven't taken the time to really find out about venues beyond, like a DC9 or 930 Club or the Anthem. So they have literally no idea who the local bands are. And then I think, everyone thinks it's only go-go and it's only jazz here. So the fact that, Sandy is documenting like the just the variety of genres of music that are out there, and you're documenting, like, DC is still hardcore. Like, look at all these bands, this scene hasn't died, it's still alive. And so I feel that it's important, you're capturing DC's history, like in the moment. And it's, at some point, if you ever do a show or something like that, like to have that archive of where the scene started and where we are now and like that evolution, I think would be just spectacular.
Well, I mean, again, I've gone down to shows in Richmond and in Baltimore and Winchester, and if I see a band I really like, I like that I'm in the position where I get to go up to them and I say, hey, you guys were great. Do you ever play in DC?
Right.
And their eyes light up. We would love to play in DC. We have no idea how to play in DC. And just like the conversation I had at Common Ping Pong, I get to say, well, I would like to see if I can help you. And then not only do they get to play in DC, but DC gets to see them. So, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that...
And they're excited. The bands from out of DC that I've talked to, now maybe there's a lot, maybe I've only talked to the right ones, I don't know. I don't think so though. I think that DC has people from not in DC, bands from not around DC, they think of DC as a major feather in their cap.
For sure.
Oh yeah, I'm at DC.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's great that, it's that whole, DIY, ethos that DC has always had, and I love that, you're starting to do your own shows, you've got your own shows, and kind of giving venues to, bands that are like, I don't have a big following, and you're just like, I don't, like, you're awesome. Like, that's what I care about.
As again, these smaller clubs in DC, bands up and down the East Coast and elsewhere, they know about them and they think, what about playing common ping pong.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would love to play or
Yeah.
Slash Run.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of Slash Run. I'd love to play there.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Pie Shop or DC9
Yeah.
or the Black Cat. The bands want to play. They don't just want to play the 930 Club.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 930 Club is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and is absolutely fantastic, wonderful venue. But there's more to DC rock and roll than Anthem and
Exactly.
and 930 Club.
Yeah.
Those are really, really big venues, and there's a different vibe.
100%.
I love the 930 Club. The vibe at the 930. Going to a show at the 930 Club, I just feel
Yeah.
so happy.
Yeah.
Here I am at the 930 Club.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know, I
it's got
still
that
remember
history
my
and
very
credibility.
first show that I ever saw at
Yeah,
the 930. The new one and the old one.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I've been
it
to
was crazy.
shows as well. You know what, I kind of get that same vibe at really any venue. I mean, like, I love the smaller venues. You know, you're up close, personal, you can see, practically touch the
Yeah.
bands. You know, you can go up and talk to them afterwards. You know, the smaller venues for me are, I think, more emblematic of what DC is. You know, Sandy had said that, you know, more collaborative here. And I think those smaller shows really demonstrate that. Yeah, you know,
But maybe it turns the show into, it's like a party.
it's a party, and then, yeah, and then so many of the bands, you know, everybody kind of knows each other. Like, you may not know anybody's, like, name, you know,
Right.
but you're like, oh, I saw you last week, or like, hey, my friend went to see you and thought you were fantastic. We're gonna be playing, you know, and it just becomes like a big, like, reunion
Well, I mean,
almost.
one of the, for me,
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I want to go see a Phalo Blue show, just as an example, is because I know that I'm going to know people at the show, not just the band.
Yep.
But I'm going to see other people that
You're gonna see Mike Charlo.
Right. And I've got a connection with these people automatically
Right.
because I've seen them so often.
So many times, yeah.
At this show, and again, and you go on and on and on with all these other bands too, and it makes it like it's kind of like a party.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
the thing, you guys were both here at the Pinch when there was the
Yep.
Punk Black.
That was
Yep, that was
fantastic.
fantastic.
It was like, I still, you know, I go, like, I look at this footage a lot, you know, and it's like, you were there, the Hillcrest crew was there. That's like Daryl's neighbors,
Yeah.
like these dads from Hillcrest, and they're blowing off steam, right?
Yeah.
They're like,
Having a party.
they
Yeah.
are part of the thing, you know,
Yes.
like, and that particular night, when I look at that, it's sort of like, everyone's there for different, well, they're all the same thing, but it's like, the fact that you're there, and when I walk into a spot and see you in there, I'm like, this is gonna be hot and it's gonna be documented. You know, and so I don't have to worry about my, like, phone camera or anything,
Yeah.
because Alec is here and it's gonna get documented, and it's already, I can tell it's gonna be crazy, and it's gonna look even crazier,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, how, like, I share my love of music with my friends. It's through all the photos that I take, because, you know, most of my friends don't go out that late. So they can only see the evidence of the show, you know, by a photo, or if I send them, like, oh, look, Alec took this, like, dope photo. I'm like, see, you could have been there. If you would come with me, this could have been you. Like, you could have seen this. And then it gets them excited to be like, oh, like, so this is why you go out. I'm like, I want to come with you. Like, that looked like an amazing time. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people at that Punk Black show. That was a
That
well
was
attended.
so amazing.
Man, that was well attended,
And
then
every
it got-
band was
yeah,
fantastic.
And then the article, it was a nice article that came out of it. I like fishing around on different, like, you know, different other people's pages about things like that, because it's almost like, you know, how, like, in the Bible, the Gospels, like, you got what, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they're all giving these accounts of, like, the same sort of experience, but they were looking at, their eyes were like focused on, as that is written, his eyes are focused on, I'm not trying to get all biblical, but you know what I mean? Like, people are giving it different accounts of a thing. And so, like, if I see Sandy's footage of something, and then I see another person's footage of the same song, but maybe they were sitting in another place in the room, they heard somebody going, whoa! That the other camera might not have caught. And it's just, it is just an incredible other sort of fold into these events. Like, you know, we're talking about events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's events and it's vibe. Because like I feel like your photos have a very particular vibe. Like I feel like if I saw your
think a lot of
photos,
photographers,
yeah.
if they've been doing it a while, a lot of photographers end up with kind of style might not be the right word, but it's probably the best word. Because I know photographers that I love when I'm at a show and I see somebody that I know and they're taking photos. I definitely check out the photos that they took of the same show because they're doing everything in black and white. Or they're doing everything, you know, this way or that way. And I know that they're going to have a completely different take on that show than I am. And it's not better and it's not worse.
Yeah, it's just different.
It's just different and it's just more of documentation of that show. And all of it is demonstrating how great the show was.
Yes.
How great the band was and how great the venue was. And so, so I love that.
yeah, for sure.
Well, what are your, and we know that, you know, COVID has had stuck a big foot up the butt of clubs in town. But like, what would you say would be your like top 5 venues?
Well, Pie Shop, Slash Run,
Yeah.
Comet Ping Pong,
Comet, yeah.
DC9, Black Cat,
Yeah.
The Hut,
Yeah.
and let's see, that's 6.
That's 6, yeah.
We'll take 6.
Now, the thing is, there's clubs that are, Union Stage is great. Union Stage is starting to get a little bit bigger.
Is it?
How do you mean,
Just,
like,
no, I mean, just
more
the fact that
well-known?
it's 450 people,
Uh-huh.
that's already
Which I don't
out of
see how.
the small club
Right.
thing, but it's, Pearl Street Warehouse, of course, there's Anthem and 930 Club, the Howard Theater, I've seen shows there, Lincoln Theater, those are just bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
But as far as the music-focused smaller clubs, and there were a couple places that were opening up right when COVID hit.
Yeah.
They didn't make it.
Didn't make it.
And so I really don't know exactly what the DC scene is right now.
Right.
That's
And whatever it is today, it's going to be different in 6 months.
true.
There's transitions happening. There's new venues that are opening up, and there's older ones that are struggling and are deciding whether or not they want to stay in business right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I hear U Street's coming back. And
I heard something about that too.
something, yeah. I don't know
U Street
exactly.
Music Hall?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't know exactly what that means, but
Yeah.
I saw the post and I was like, yes. Because that was another great venue.
Like
I love that
Songbird,
one.
for example.
Yeah.
Great venue in Adams Morgan isn't in Adams Morgan anymore.
Nope.
They moved.
They moved over to Union
And,
Market.
and it's great. They put a lot of effort into it, and it's nice.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
And the parking's really easy.
Is
Yeah.
it?
So,
Maybe I gotta.
but it's really nice. And then there's just so many. And I'm sure there's going to be, H Street used to have a bunch of venues. I'm sure there's going to be more things popping up there. U Street has, I mean, there's the jazz clubs and so on U Street that I haven't been able to really focus and go, okay, what's there? I know Velvet Lounge isn't there anymore.
Yep.
I know DC9 is there.
It's still there, yeah.
Wow.
And they seem to be doing
They
pretty
seem to be
well.
doing okay.
And of course you got the 930 Club and Howard Theater, but as you start to go to the other end of U Street, I'm not sure what is going on there, but I know that there will be,
Ooh, yeah.
no question about it. And Adams Morgan has had some turnover as well, and I'm sure there's gonna be, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of stuff, that will, and this is all gonna happen in the next, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's happening a little bit faster right now, and then it's gonna settle down. And so I think we've got a good 6 months to a year as things, there's clubs that are getting ready to open right now that none of us know about.
Yeah.
And we'll find out about it in 2 or 3 weeks. They'll say, hey, we're gonna be opening this club, and then they'll actually open in another, 2 or 3 months.
2 months, yeah.
When they finally get everything on there, and we don't know about it yet, but it's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenging time for sure, but also still really exciting because people have been so innovative about how to get their music out to people, if they can't play in a club.
Oh, the live streams. And,
Yeah, the live
oh,
streams,
yeah,
the
yeah.
outdoor, like I've been loving all the outdoor shows, especially the ones doing in the fall when it's not so bloody hot.
Yeah,
I'm like, can we just keep this as a thing? I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
Having, music outside, in October. I'm like, it's pretty mild in November. Like, let's just keep this,
Right.
let's just keep this going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have the right place for that though, where the neighbors aren't gonna come over.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always a challenge. I was at Down in the Reeds on Saturday, and that went like really, really well. And we were talking a little bit today, about next year, because I obviously want to do it again. But they're like, oh, all this development is going to be around, and we don't know about who wants to have a loud music right in the backyard. And I'm like, well, the yard has been there for like 100 years. You kind of know that, but I mean it goes the same thing, the whole mute DC thing, don't mute DC thing. So that whole spot is going to be completely different
Right.
in a year than it is today.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's all been really interesting, and it's great that there's people out there capturing all those changes, for good or bad,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Whatever your opinion is, but I think it's great to look back at all that.
So, where did the name Roxplosion come from?
This is really easy. When I was first deciding that I was gonna formalize the photography, and putting it all on, I needed to come up with a name.
Right.
So I needed a name that was available on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I can get the domain name for it. And several days of coming up with different names, I came up with Roxplosion. So Roxplosion sort of is the sort of filter to the bottom,
Wow.
and that's really it.
But you didn't want to just use your name. You want to have like a
I wanted it to
persona,
be
like
yeah,
separate, like your secret identity, like Superman.
like Batman, but I don't sell crimes.
Well, speaking of plugs and stuff, so where, so Roxplosion.com,
Yep.
yes.
ROX.
ROX. Instagram, same.
Instagram, same
It's all
thing.
everything is
Everything's
Roxplosion.
Yes.
And what do you have coming up?
Glad you asked.
It's almost like we had it written on a piece
It's
of
almost
paper.
like we had it
November
written.
19th.
November 19th.
November 19th is a Friday.
Okay.
Hold on, is it November 19th? I think it's November 19th. I should probably check to make absolutely sure about that. Friday. Savory Sessions at the Pie Shop
Savory
Sessions
sessions,
at the Pie
okay.
Shop.
with Hybrid Band
Mm-hmm.
and Full Bush and Black Vapor.
I don't know.
You said Black Baker?
Black Vapor.
Oh, I was going to say Black Baker at the Pie Shop.
Are they all local? Like from DC? Any?
Hybrid Band is from DC. Full Bush is from Philadelphia.
Philly.
And Black Vapor is from Baltimore.
Nice.
That sounds like
Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I'm
sounds.
gonna check those out. I don't
That sounds
know.
pretty
DC
live.
Center.
Yeah, that sounds pretty live.
DC Nougat.
And
Yeah.
this is a Roxplosion show, is it?
It is a
DC.
Roxplosion show.
Excellent.
DC.
And I'm trying a new thing
Yeah,
and I probably shouldn't mention this, but I will.
because we can always cut
I
it.
want to make this the worst kept secret in DC.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to have a kind of a, you have 3 bands, and as people are arriving to the venue, usually there's house music playing.
Yeah.
Or something. Instead, I'm going to have something else. And
Oh, yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
All right. All right. Well, you heard it here, or you didn't because it was the worst kept secret. You didn't hear it.
You want to get there early,
Okay.
because it's not just going to be house music playing.
All right. So long as it's not happening to the chipmunks, I'm down.
It's not.
I mean,
the
you
chipmunks,
definitely had me
They
intrigued.
don't return my calls.
You did reach out. Alvin, you guys got to stop acting so cute. Chipmunks. You nothing but a bunch of chipmunks. Oh, we're down to the Oh, speaking of DC, okay. Yeah, actually, Alec, I'm really interested in I'm interested in these questions. So we have a series of questions that are this or that kind of a
Okay.
thing of how DC are you?
Okay.
And I love to hear your answers. You want to alternate? You want to go back and forth?
Yeah, we can alternate.
All right, Mambo sauce or Old Bay?
Oh, mambo sauce.
Half smoke or hot dog?
And smoke.
Old 930 or new 930?
Oh, wow.
Hey! That stench! Ooh,
Well, okay.
that
I
smell!
saw some really cool shows at the old 930 Club.
Yeah.
But I think the new 930 Club, the current 930 Club, is the best venue I've ever.
I saw Deftones at the new 930, and for Deftones, for that music to be so loud, it did not feel, it went into my ear so good. I was like, this is way too loud, but it just doesn't feel like it. But then again, I saw Roots at the old 930 Club.
Ooh.
And Gangstar, and that was pretty gangster.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this one is kind of unfair.
This might be rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The pie shop or Comet Ping Pong?
Again, really tough.
Yep.
Both of those venues, for me personally, have been so kind to me, and I've seen so many great shows there. But right now I'm doing a lot of stuff with the pie shop, so I'll give the nod to the pie shop. But oh man, going to
Squeaker.
Comet Ping Pong, I love going to Comet Ping Pong and getting what they call the hottie, which is pepperoni and jalapeno pepper pizza, and then posting on Facebook that I've got my date with the hottie at Comet Ping Pong,
Oh my.
just to annoy my drunk uncle.
Oh
That's
my
funny.
goodness.
I don't have a drunk uncle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
I hope that's.
Yeah, I need to get over there. I know they're doing some.
But yeah, that was
like
unfair.
I know.
That was an unfair question.
I know.
I think I might notice this. Adams Morgan or U Street?
Oh, that's tough also.
Really?
But I'm gonna give the nod to U Street
I would have thought you would. Okay.
because the parking's easier.
This is true. This is true.
I'm just.
I mean, but it's only by a nose,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
true.
So yeah, I did a computation on that one. So
Okay.
that one was answered from the head and not from the heart.
I get it.
Okay. DC or the district?
I'm trying to think of how I describe, because I work in Northern Virginia. And I'll tell my coworkers, I gotta leave a little early. I'm going into DC. I pretty much always say DC.
DC.
I'd probably say the district sometimes, and if somebody said the district, I wouldn't think that they were being awkward at all.
Really?
But I'm heading into the district. Yeah, I could see that, but that's not what I say. I say DC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meridian Hill Park or Malcolm X Park?
I do not have a lot of familiarity with Malcolm X Park, so I'll go with Meridian.
Meridian.
I did a photo shoot of a band, One Identity there. So
Oh yeah, Alina Mudd.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still together. I can't tell from the
She's
Insta-
doing big things. I don't
I
know.
know she's doing stuff, but I'm like,
She's doing a
is
lot
she
of
I don't know what
band?
she's doing. She does so much stuff, and she's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
We had her at the hut one time.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Okay. Favorite fall festivals?
Favorite? Does the H Street Festival count? That's in the fall, isn't it?
That was
fall,
recently,
yeah.
like a few weeks ago, right?
Okay, is that fall?
Ish.
I do like the H Street Festival. Yeah, I'll go with the H Street Festival.
Okay.
Okay, Punk the Capital or The Beat Don't Stop. I don't know if I've even seen The Beat Don't Stop.
Might not have.
Gonna have to say Punk.
Because he's wearing the t-shirt and everything. Oh, you want to? I didn't get the memo.
I thought I was doing something until these showed up.
I would have worn mine.
I love this shirt so bad.
That's awesome. That's funny. Okay, and our last one, favorite place for late night jams.
Favorite place for late night jams? I do like going to Bossa in Adams
Oh
Morgan.
yeah,
They've got some great late night jams.
Yeah.
Gordon Sterling.
Gordon, yes, I've seen him there a couple times. And that's the first one that comes off my head. So I'm gonna go with Bossa.
Wow. Well, we want to thank
Am I
you.
DC?
Huh? Oh, you're DC.
Yes.
You DCR. I mean, we didn't need to run
There's
this
no
thing.
prize
But
other than yay! You don't win
Listen.
anything.
we really want to thank you. Thank you. And Sandy. Sandy had to get on her magic
She's
carpet
always
and do
got
some
the show.
gigs
Yeah,
and
she's
stuff.
great.
So, but we really want to thank you again for
Great to be
coming.
here.
And we're going to be, Paige, where can people find you?
You can find me at curious-caravan.com, and you can find me on Instagram at curious_caravan.
And you can find me on at Phalo Blue, THAYLOBLEU, Hut DC Events at Hut DC Events on Instagram. And we have a Hut YouTube channel.
Yes, we do.
And very soon we'll also have a Hut web page so that you can see who's coming. They've been asking me, I'm such a old school person that I really wanted to just do third generation Xerox copy flyers as a means of promoting shows. But we landed on let's just do a page, and the page helped me with
No pun intended.
dropping,
Page.
leading me into the 21st century with pieces of candy. So yeah, Hut DC Events, and I think that's about, because I got a bunch of different. I'm gonna narrow that down. But yeah, Phalo Blue, Hut DC Events. So in the pocket is really we're about connecting this web of history in DC and abroad, and in the greater DC area, one conversation at a time, and you and Sandy sharing what you guys have shared from a perspective that we, I know as a performer, I'm often wondering what's going on in you guys' minds and stuff. It really helps, really paint this nice picture of what we of this planet called DC that we rocking and rolling in. So thank you so much again, Alec. Thank you, Paige, for having us. Thank you, Sandy. And we will see you next time in the pocket.